wrestling fans, and welcome to the Wrestle Talk Podcast. For the next 2 hours, we will bring you the latest pro wrestling news, in-depth analysis of all your favorite promotions from across the globe, and much, much more. We will also bring you exclusive interviews with the greatest professional wrestling personalities on the local, national, and international levels. If you want to follow the Wrestle Talk Podcast, check us out online at www.wrestletalkpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And now, it's time for the reigning, defending, undisputed leader in pro wrestling podcast, the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 434 of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, right here at WrestleTalkPodcast.com and all of our great social media outlets. It is I, Luke Roberts, here again this evening. I'm going to be joined here momentarily by the one, the only, the Alpha, and Justin Wade are going to be joining me here in just a few minutes. It's going to be a great night of professional wrestling discussion here on the program. And also, our featured guest here this evening is going to be joining us at approximately 8:15 this evening from Wrestling Theology Fellowship out of Indiana. The gentleman by the name of Rich Abott, had an opportunity to meet him at the Cauliflower Alley Club in September and made it a point to get in contact with him. They've got an event coming up in early June. I want to share some information not only about their promotion, but about what they do in the great state of Indiana. Again, if you're joining us here this evening, make it a point to like and share the broadcast. Also, hashtag WTP, hashtag Wrestle Talk Podcast, and hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling. Make sure also that you sign in here this evening so that we can get everybody taken care of and identify who all is going to be here on the program. Of course, as I said earlier, I would be remiss if I wasn't joined with my longtime friend, broadcast colleague, competed inside the squared circle with this man, and tonight he's going to join us again here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast, a man known for his rants and his outgoing personality. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Wade joining us here on the program. Justin, how are you doing this evening? And I got to tell you, Justin, you look like it's getting colder by the week in Seattle. It really does.
No, it's not that bad. It's actually like 60 right now, but I'm growing the hair out. I'm not liking the way it's looking at the moment. So I'm kind of low key right now because there's still some people running around the office. As soon as it clears out, I'm going to be ranting away just like everybody likes.
Well, tonight on the Wrestle Talk Podcast, we're going to be featuring Rich Abott joining us from Wrestling Theology Fellowship.
You might have to
here on the program.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we're going to.
Okay. Hey, Luke, I gotta lock the door behind one of the lawyers. They don't have a key. Okay.
That'll work for me. Like I said, we're going to be joined here momentarily by the Alpha as well. Justin having to take care of some professional issues as well. Tonight's going to be a great show. And again, if you enjoyed Wrestle Talk Podcast, make it a point to share us on social media, Wrestle Talk Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. Make it a point to share us out there because we are one of the longest running podcasts throughout all of the professional wrestling world. And speaking of which, as Justin's taking care of a little bit of professional business, we are going to be joined by the Alpha. I wonder if the Alpha is going to be, hey, Alpha. I'm surprised. It seems like we're back to old times here on the program this evening. How have you been, my friend? Well, we might have the Alpha. I don't know what's going on here with our feed. It looks like we're having some wonderful technology issues here. Again, we're going to be joined by the Alpha and Justin Wade here in just a few moments. We're going to go ahead and let Alpha see if he can reset his connection and make sure we're taking care of things here. Again, let's go ahead while they're getting their technology taken care of. Let's go ahead and acknowledge all of our great sponsors who, without without whom we wouldn't have this program each and every week. We got Royal Mills Transportation with the CEO, DeJuan Mills, Rathbun Engraving, the ones behind those great Wrestle Talk podcast mugs, Nobleman's Barber Lounge, Kansas City, Kincaid Arcade at the Oak Park Mall, our good friends over at Interstate 70 Sports Media with the maestro Jeremy Karp, Little Popeye Designs, you can go to those great Wrestle Talk podcast tumblers, and the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. Justin, I think we've got everything taken care of now here. I know your microphone is ready to rock and roll. I believe we're going to go ahead and get things done. And I think, hopefully, we're going to get things taken care of. I know your microphone is giving you a little bit of a deal here. I don't know if it's actually on or not. Something tells me that Justin Wade is going to have a monstrous rant here in a minute because, hey, it's finally on now. You got your chance to rant now because your microphone's working, man.
I'm the last one here in the office. Make sure all the doors are locked and stuff. So especially sometimes the attorneys don't have keys, so I have to be their lockout. I have to make sure the doors are locked at the end of the day. So.
Well, you know something, Justin. I mean, again, that's showing how loyal you are, not only to your outside business interests, but also to the Wrestle Talk podcast. You take care of everything each and every time you come on the program. And like I said, tonight we're going to have a great opportunity to talk to one of the driving forces behind Wrestling Theology Fellowship, that being Rich Abbott's going to be joining us here in just a few moments. We're going to have a lot of great wrestling conversation. I got to ask you, how you been, man? I mean, again, it's 60 degrees where you are, but it looks like you're getting prepared to go out and shovel a foot of snow.
No, I'm wearing just an Adidas track jacket. You know, it's I got a short sleeve dress shirt on underneath this. You know, I'm doing the Dennis Friends from NYPD Blue look, and with the stash, I just have a full head of hair. It's coming back, but I'm gonna give it one more go, and if I have any holes, I kind of see some light glaring off it, but I'm hoping that's just because the hair hasn't come in all the way yet. But if there are holes, I'm not going to George Costanza it. It's going to be completely shaven like usual, and I'm going to look like Curly again. So,
You know something, Justin? At least you're referencing Curly and you're not referencing Homer Simpson. As long as you're that way, you're good to go. No. I mean, again, we know a lot of people in both of our families that when it comes down to it, they try to pull off the bald look. They try to pull off the look with hair, but in reality, it doesn't turn out the way they would have hoped. So
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to try to pull off. Now, this is going to throw some shade out there, but from 2004, there's video footage from Monday Night Raw when Michaels gets his hair flops forward. And all that long hair comes forward, and there's a big, long, bald spot right there. I'm not going to go for that look, okay?
Well, Justin, I got to tell you right now, man, I mean, I had an opportunity to know you for many, many years. And, again, seeing you with hair again on top of your head makes me very impressed. I mean, again, maybe who knows? Maybe you'll grow your hair out and I'll grow my hair short. I mean, that's kind of how we can look at things. We can kind of do the change in things when it comes to things. Now, real quick here. As we said before, I don't know what's up with Alpha. I don't.
That's okay.
He came on the line, and his computer just decided he wasn't going to have connection. He tried to talk and froze, and it was not a good time. But we know the Alpha's going to join us here.
He's going to see what parking lot's going to kick him out for, prowling. Because it looks like every time he reports from somewhere, it's either outside the window of someone's house or somebody's closet as he's watching over them. So, he's probably right now doing his stationary job, being a creeper. So, and I'm hoping you hear this because I would love for him to debate me on that. But while he's not here, I'm going to rag on him. So,
well, and officially at 7:10, Justin gets his first dig in at Alpha this evening. I mean, again, it's going to be a long night for the Alpha. But you know something, Justin? Before we get tonight started, as we always do each and every week, we're going to go ahead and we are going to pay homage to the greatest country in the world. And we're also going to pay homage to all those brave men and women who stand up for us each and every week to make sure we can have things like the Wrestle Talk podcast. So at this time, we ask that you please remove your hats, place your hands over your heart as we pay homage to the greatest country on this planet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Roseanne bringing us in here this week on the
That's
Wrestle Talk podcast. I can tell you right now, Justin. I mean, again, you've joined us here in the last few months. I mean, it does not compare to our previous rendition of the national anthem, that being the one performed by Carl Lewis. But again, another outstanding rendition of the national anthem. And again, we want to give a shout out to all of our great men and women defending our country overseas throughout the world. Also want to thank our first responders, our medical personnel, as well as our firemen and our policemen, making it a point to protect us each and every day so that we can have things like the Wrestle Talk podcast here. Now, Justin, I'm going to tell you right now, and this is going to sound strange, I really thought that there would be a lot more in the world of pro wrestling to be talking about this week, but there are.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Well, go ahead.
There's some stuff.
Yeah,
there's some stuff.
This is not. To be honest with you, is it me, or does this not seem like it's a couple of weeks? This does not seem like 3 weeks after WrestleMania.
I'm a little worried. We had the Oscars come and go. That WrestleMania is the Super Bowl, the Oscars. It just it makes me feel like I don't know. I don't have a good feeling in my belly right now. Maybe it's because of the weird tasting chicken noodle soup I ate an hour before the show, but I was hyped for Sammy and Kevin taking on the Usos, and now I'm like, and it looks like those two are not even going to Saudi Arabia, Sammy and Kevin, because of their beliefs, and that's respectable. But they might have to drop the tag straps before the show. So
I guess that's one of those we can discuss here in just a little bit. But before we go to high spots, we're going to try this thing once again and see if the Alpha can actually finally join us.
Am I coming in clear, gentlemen?
You're like that telephone commercial. Can we hear you now?
Yeah, exactly. It's horrible.
Well, just to let you know, Alpha, it's 7:13, and you're already 3 minutes behind. Justin Wade throwing a little bit of shade at 10 after 7. You're already behind, my friend.
Man, it looks like he's like 5 minutes away from a 911 call being made on him.
It definitely feels that way. Well, tell them I'm in here.
Well, right now, you see here, we've got the Alpha joining us. Justin Wade.
Love you too,
We're taking care of the national anthem. Also want to give a shout out
thank God.
Hardcore
I
want to give a shout out to the Night Owl. I know he's taking care of some family matters right now. Also want to give a shout out to Nightmare Jones as well. And of course, we said earlier on a good shout out to our friends, the Maestro Jeremy Karp and Chris Rodell. I know Chris has been working real hard as of late. And guys, we're all here. We've got the viewers here. Make it a point, guys. If you want to go ahead and chime in, go ahead and add those comments. We may very well use your question here or your comment here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. But let's go ahead and get things started. I mean, it has been a week in the world of professional wrestling. So let's go ahead, if we go ahead and hit that for the high spot segment here on this week's episode of the Wrestle Talk podcast.
Mic check, mic check. Yeah. All right. Wrestle Talk podcast. DJ Money. Yeah. Let's go. Welcome to High Spots, where we pop news like lamb chops. We dog shop, coming through the screens of a laptop and non-stop like a runner speakers of blacktop. We hit hard like chair shots and backdrops, like a clock flash, look like a belly flop. Now that's on. We up to speed while they stay slow. Wrestle Talk podcast. Now they know we about to start the show.
God, I love that song.
And if you want to get that or any other custom music, make it a point to check out DJ Money online and catch him in social media as well. He can provide you pretty much any music that you would like. Also, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, and I want to make sure that we go ahead and Chris, if you'd be so kind, I know Chris is taking care of some stuff backstage along with some new some new personalities who will be joining us in the next few weeks. Chris, can you go ahead real quick and throw up? I just put it here in the chat here a minute ago. Last week we talked about our good friend Eric Allen and his family's situation regarding what's going on here. And as he brought up here, Allison's fight. This is basically a young lady, I believe still 5 years old, was severely burned from the waist up. Got a lot of things going on. I believe had a second, if I'm not mistaken, a second major skin graft, and the first pretty much complete removal and rebandaging. She's got a lot of things going, but she's been trying her best to be as positive as she can be. If you get an opportunity, if you can spare a few dollars, make it a point to go to GoFundMe. Look up Allison's fight. As you can see right now, since last week, they've managed to raise almost $10,000 to help with the expenses. I mean, again, this is a very tragic situation, and the Wrestle Talk podcast having Mr. Allen on the program in the past, and all of us having dealings with him. Again, make it a point to, if you get a chance, Allison's fight. We will share the address with you here as we go on through the program this evening. If you can share a few dollars, it would be very much appreciated. Had an opportunity, like I said, to talk to Mr. Allen last week, and he's very appreciative of the Wrestle Talk podcast and all we're doing to help out the cause. So, with that being said, gentlemen, let's go ahead and move to our week in review, if you will. And we were talking about it a few minutes ago. Alpha, I want to throw this to you. Do you feel that since WrestleMania, really the WWE's just kind of become meh?
Yes. And I'm so glad you asked me this question, because I've been wanting to comment, just because the past week of wrestling for me has been non-WWE things, specifically because I knew I was going to hear about it. I knew I was going to hear about this company. I was like, word of mouth. I don't need to keep my foot in here. And the thing is, I'm so glad I did, because I watched Sonata's G1 run. Oh my God, Justin, watch it. It was really good. And you're going to love Soccer at Genesis. Are you a Stan Hansen fan, either of you?
I know I am. Justin's a huge Hansen fan.
Mark Davis. Oh my God. Modern day Mark. Oh, it's so good.
I got an elbow sleeve under here that I just pull up occasionally when I'm bored. So
I hope you do.
Hansen used to do.
I'm just going to keep my mouth quiet, because there's a whole bunch of comments I could throw out there, but I'm not going to. I'm going to
go ahead. Oh, by the way, I'm going to start my comments. I'm going to start off here. What the hell are you wearing, Luke? Are you? It looks like you just got out of a Steffi Graf tennis promo picture. Okay, where's Andre Agassi? Okay.
Okay, we're gonna later on in the program we're gonna have a rant from Luke Roberts. I'm just gonna warn you now. It's coming, and I had an opportunity. I'm gonna tell you right now, Justin. If it makes my wife, who doesn't come on camera too often, I really don't talk about her as much as I should. She really is a wonderful woman. But when I make her sit back and take notice, my rant's got some merit to it. So. And we got it right here. The rant counter for Justin Wade is 1. It's almost like the Sunny Money coffee meter.
Yes.
We're going to keep this going here.
I'm so glad we have those.
Go.
I'm going to rant I got rant number 2 right here for you. If you're going to put motherfucking Justin Wade rant counter, make sure all of the main words are uppercase. He's got Justin Wade and rant uppercase, but counter lowercase. Get it together.
Well, speaking of which, he's now got 2 rants going on. Let's go ahead and throw our first question out here. And like I said, if the randomizer works, great. If not, we're going to throw it up here. We got the counter.
There we go.
Just so we're good to go. Let's go ahead and throw the first question up here. So let's see here. Are we going to get? Ooh, what do you think is going to happen in the draft? And I'm going to tell you right now, my view is, and this is the first time I'm going to say this for years, I am not looking forward to the draft. And the reason why is I think the WWE is going to find a way to bungle this again. The WWE had all this momentum coming out of WrestleMania, and they have been mild. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think they're going to find a way to mess this up. Justin.
It just so happens that I'm nervous as well about this draft. So for one, there's no really, I'm just so bungled right now because WWE's been falling flat. Yeah, we got Backlash coming up. But they're already looking forward to Night of Champions. It was supposed to be the King and Queen of the Ring pay-per-view, but they changed it to Night of Champions. So the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournament, where's that at now? They're going to be crowning a new champ. We got that new belt going on. which I'm sure we're going to be talking about here in another high spots. But with the draft, I'm a little nervous.
Well, Justin, I'm going to look at it this way from a perspective of, besides everything that's going on here with the draft, I just have this feeling that the WWE is going to take this to another level of falling flat on its face. And like I said, this is one of those where Alpha, I hope you can find a silver lining. There's just nothing that really appeals to either one of us.
I'm afraid to admit, gentlemen, I really don't know what they can do. Not so much out of a sense of like they don't have any options, but as much as I can't make heads or tails of it. I'm genuinely like, because I'm hearing all this information at once. For starters, Xavier Woods winning the IC title. I mean, that's off of Gunther, mind you. Yeah. Justin's response is the most appropriate. I mean, what do? Do you transfer him to SmackDown and keep Theory on Raw? Like, it's one of those things where I'm the person who's thinking there was a draft and it's like, oh, okay. And they're still doing it. Like, of all the things that they're changing, does anybody really need the draft right now?
I look at it right now, Alpha, of where, and you talk about Gunther and Xavier Woods. Justin, you and I have been longtime fans of the King of the Ring. That was, a lot of people would consider that to be almost on par of winning the Intercontinental title. That shows that you are one of the people that the company places a large degree of value in. And since Xavier Woods has won that championship, it's like they've just let him sit there and they've done nothing with him. Alpha, I look at what Chris has been saying here, and thanks, Chris, for sharing your comment. Hunter's reset. I don't think this is a reset. This is a reset to the reset that hasn't worked, Alpha.
I agree. I agree, just because I don't think Vince McMahon is done sticking his fingers in everything. I genuinely think he's trying to chill back at home, let Hunter take the flack for it and try to do what he can, but then is doing the usual Vince McMahon thing, which is correcting it, overstepping it. And then, Hunter can't make any sense out of it because any momentum he does get, Vince has to make it his way. And if it doesn't make sense to Vince, it doesn't happen. And I wanted to add to what you were saying. I think the King of the Ring opportunity is a huge misstep on WWE's half, just because not only do you miss that opportunity to give somebody the King of the Ring win that might not have gotten it, or potential storytelling. Do either of you think they could have milked the story of Xavier Woods going the distance and going to the finals to represent his King of the Ring win last year? Why not push for that narrative? Why not make Xavier Woods aim to be the only other two-time King of the Ring winner, but then also the narrative of he's 2 years apart? That could have worked. And, and I've seen a bunch of fan bookings. Justin, you were going to say.
What I'm going to say is the reason why I don't think that would work is because as soon as they threw the bloodline and Roman crossed Xavier's path after he won the King of the Ring, everybody forgot that he won the King of the Ring. Unless you're a hardcore fan, remember that he won it just last year, so it just feels like I don't know. I with poor Xavier, I feel like he has to have the other two nucleuses to complete him. I don't know. I can't do Xavier by himself. I got to see him with the other two.
Well, then can I make another pitch for that? Sorry.
No, go ahead, brother.
Well, it's just like not just Xavier. Xavier was the first thing come to mind because they don't do with him. I mean, that's fine. I'm glad he's getting a push.
Looks like he's breaking up here, Luke.
Am I coming back in?
You're good. You're talking about how Xavier Woods is kind of, it's just kind of falling flat here.
It's thrown together. I mean, and then the King of the Ring robs the opportunity of any story that they could have done. That would have been a natural breakup for the Street Profits. You could have made it where Angelo Dawkins and oh my God, what's his name? It escapes me. Montez Ford. Thank you. Sorry. No disrespect. You could have made the narrative where those two make it. Maybe they make it towards the second block, or maybe they're first round opponents, and maybe you tease the breakup. Do it Gargano, Ciampa, like their CWC Classic. Maybe kind of tease the idea because I know they're going for it. And then, there was another fan booking where they wanted Solo Sikoa to win it. Maybe you could make main event Jay win it. This ties back into Cody winning the title, but that's besides the point. There are stories they could have done, and they're shelving that just for Night of Champions. And I feel like they're doing it just to be like, hey, look, we have belts. Like,
yeah. And you know something, guys? We're going to go ahead here real quick. And Justin, you alluded to it. If we can go ahead and throw that follow-up question here. We talked about what's going to happen in the draft. We're going to take just a second here because you got to throw it out here. The new belt was unveiled last night. What are your thoughts on the new belt? I'm going to go ahead and go with you, Justin, because when it comes to pro wrestling belts, out of all the people I know, you're one of the very few that really looks at championship belts from all of the different pieces and its look, its components, all that. What are your thoughts of the new title?
I like it. I really just wish that W was just a tad bit smaller. I like it. They're trying to keep in line with the whole W look, the WWE look. It's a reimagining of the old school Flair World title. It's going to be it's a bit different. I kind of put it in the same realm as the IC belt right now. It kind of has that same mold to it, in my opinion. So maybe the IC and the World Championship should be defended on one show. Now I got to ask you guys this: with this draft, is Roman going to be a WWE champion and Universal champion? Is he going to be holding the two belts on the show he's at, and then there's going to be a world?
I believe they said they're introducing another world title after this, so this is the unification for Romans, I think. I don't remember.
Okay, so but when it's all said and done, Roman's only going to have one belt. Am I correct?
Yes.
That sounds right.
So they're going to be introducing a new belt for Roman then. Am I correct on that?
I think the new one they introduce is his belt.
No, I thought because Triple H last night said this belt that they unveiled last night is going to have a new champion crowned at Night of Champions.
Oh, maybe I misheard him. I guess I thought they were giving him that belt. So maybe they're planning something for Roman in the future, or maybe they're keeping those two belts.
Here's the thing. People are like, oh, he's a part-time champion. This is how a heavyweight champion should be promoted. I love it.
Exactly.
Because he's not oversaturating television. And when he is on television, it's a big goddamn treat. And he's going to bring the numbers in when they say, guess who's going to be on SmackDown this week? Roman, because he's got to confront the bloodline for doing something stupid.
Okay, so Chris is saying in the comments, whatever brand doesn't get Roman gets the new belt. So that makes sense. And then I wanted to add, Justin, Roman is at his best specifically, and the titles themselves are at their best when they feel like an event. We know they need to be there, but we already know who has them. It's very Final Boss-esque. It feels like more of an event, especially with his theme song when the person comes out, and it's at SummerSlam, it's at the Royal Rumble. Even Elimination Chamber felt like a big deal when Roman finally got up to wrestle. Because think about War Games. Remember how they waited to keep him to the end? They saved him until his match with Sammy, and I think that's when Roman's at his best. So I couldn't agree more as far as Roman winning that. But Luke, what are your thoughts on the new belt? I'd like to hear your input.
Well, before I throw my thoughts in, Justin I know he's got another point. I just know he's got something.
It's going to be a good point too. Just saying. Okay, with this new champion, this gives people are going to forget. Okay, so people are like, oh, what rank? How long is Roman going to hold the belt? Well, guess what? Because of this, he can hold that motherfucking belt for as long as they want him to now. Because it's going to keep him off television. He's going to defend on special occasions. Yeah, he'll be on SmackDown, but he's not going to be on there all the time. Okay, This is going to lengthen his reign. If you think about it, it's going to have, because now this World Heavyweight Championship can be the belt that's decided. Triple H said it's going to be defended everywhere. It's going to be defended overseas. And what makes me really, really scratch my head, the way he said that, by chance, do you think we're going to get some inter-promotional defenses now? And Triple H is trying to get this to be the traveling world title like Ric Flair did at the end of his NWA run with the title. You think he's going to be able to pull strings like that?
I certainly hope so. What do you think, Luke?
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you this. And again, I tried to pull it up here, and I know hopefully our tech team will be able to pull up a photo here to show exactly what the belt looks like. And again, spoiler alert, we may wind up actually having an image of the new World Championship here on the screen momentarily. To me, when I first saw it, I thought I was going to lose my lunch. And the reason why is I felt that there was too much trying to be crammed into one championship. I really did. I mean, it sounds weird, but I liken it to a certain degree. And Alpha, I know that I'm not trying to mean this as a slight to Justin, but I know you're a little more. No, he's a little more knowledgeable in the championships and things along the lines in Japan. Mm-hmm. And I remember back to a time, I believe Mr. Matt Seidel was the Open the Dream Gate champion for Dragon Gate. Mm-hmm. And he had this championship, and as he brings it, now here's a picture of the championship right now. When I see this center plate, I really thought that it was basically like the Dragon Gate Championship where they had a level, they put a second level, they mash it together and try to do everything they can to shove two different levels of belt into one. And now
I agree.
And now that I see it, I have a little more for it.
I don't give this picture justice, though, because this belt justice in this pick, because this is the belt that they're selling on WWE.com. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. That belt, yeah, that was the quality picture. This is the reality. And here's the one thing can I throw one thing out there? Am I the only one who does like this more than the W belt? Like, I will be the one to say this. The last three belts, this is still better than that. This is leagues above those. I will say that.
Yeah. I'm going to beg to differ with you a little bit. The W title,
I say this as a spinner defender.
I get it. The spinner title, yeah. But if you're going to go, I mean, I was looking at a little differently. I would say that this one here, while I agree with Justin, it reminds me of the old NWA Ric Flair world title.
It was intentional.
I look at it that we've not had a decent championship. I even want to go beyond the old undisputed title. I want to go back to the old big round circular plate that Austin had.
The big cookie?
Either that or, I mean, again, I like the smoking skull belt, but to me, I'd almost want to go back. I don't feel that the WWE really has had a great championship. I honestly say since the Winged Eagle.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that one, because what they tried to do with the Attitude Era WWF belt after they retired the Winged Eagle, they tried competing with the big golden WCW. That's why I think they brought that big version of the WWF belt for Austin after he won it at WrestleMania 14.
Well, and I actually heard that. Sorry, I didn't mean to yell over you there, Justin. I actually heard that the belt, the original WWF Winged Eagle, was actually broken. So if you go back in that match with Austin and Shawn, you'll notice it has those two little prongs on the side, little clips. One of them is missing. So maybe they actually took it apart because they're like, dude, this belt is actually falling apart.
That is true. That is true. Now, while we're at it here, and again, I want to thank our tech team for making sure they can keep up on us here with all these comments. I want to go ahead real quick and throw one more. It's like we're kind of the never-ending question here on High Spots. We talked about the draft. We talked about the idea of the new belt being unveiled last night. The third and final question that I have in this little trilogy of questions is a real short answer. And that's not the one I was looking for, but that's okay. We'll answer that here in a minute.
I'd argue that does have a short answer.
That one does have a short answer too, and we're going.
I'm looking forward to it. It's giving Damon Priest a push.
I look at it. No, if again, Bad Bunny has had what one match, two matches.
He's had two.
Yeah.
Was he in the Battle Royal? I can't remember. Or no,
that'd be considered three. I think he had a SummerSlam and a Mania match, or a Saudi match.
Yeah, and I look at it right now. I mean, to me, I get where they're going with it, but I just don't know if this is the right avenue. I mean, it to me, it's one of those. If Damian Priest does not win, I think you have taken a man who has all the potential in the world and you have completely discredited him. And that's one of those where you can't put a new name on him. You can't put a new hairstyle. You can't put a new outfit. If this does not go exactly the way it is, this very well will be the last major event for Damian Priest.
Damian is the new Baron Corbin. That's all I got to say.
Ooh.
Yikes. The only thing I could see saving Damian, if that ending was a possibility, Luke, is sending him back down to NXT. And I don't want that to happen because you said it yourself. Damian's really good. Like, he's a really good, talented wrestler, and I don't know why they're booking him like an idiot.
Well, right now, and I'm going to put it this way, and you may have actually found the saving grace, Alpha. I look at it from right now in the idea of where, and this is a far stretch, he loses to Bad Bunny, and the only way you save him in NXT is you put him with Dijak.
As a tag team?
Yes. To me, I liken it to the twin, or not the twin.
Were you going to say the Skyscrapers?
Skyscrapers, correct.
That was who was that again? That was Sid Vicious.
I would say it more of Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious.
Is it weird that I was thinking the same thing? Now that you said it, I can kind of picture it. Okay, there's potential in that. But Luke, I'll do you one better. Why not? I guess I more would rather that Dijakovic join Judgment Day and they become their tag syndicate. But that's me being wishful.
Well, that is true here. So real quick, before we go too much farther along, and I want to make sure that I can kind of get Justin fired up to add more to the Justin Wade rant counter. Let's go ahead and switch gears here real quick. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the world of New Japan. With Mercedes Moné losing the IWGP Women's Championship, do you feel her time is up in New Japan? Now, we know that from their media outlets that she has signed to make more appearances, but what do you think about this? I mean, to me, I look at it from a perspective of they brought her in for the name value. They gave her the large amount of money she was wanting. She made her handful of appearances, and now she's going to go out there, have a couple more matches, make some more reputable names, and then very nicely walk on out the door. Justin, your thoughts on Mercedes Moné losing the title?
It's not going to be a rant because to me, this whole reign and her whole time in New Japan's been like a big flat fart. And I just Japan, I don't think they should be flipping as they are right now. It seems like right now. I'm sorry, I'm not bashing on Sonata winning the title, but okay. I feel like these belts are put up on a shelf way above what we have here in the States. And seeing Mercedes lose the belt, it doesn't do anything for me. I really wish they could have gave her a lengthier reign with some top tier talent to where she put a built her. I know she's got her name alone. Make sure you have a plate for all of us there, Alpha. Anyway,
we got Cracker Barrel, folks. Not sponsored.
We have Cracker Barrel here in Seattle. Anyway, it just didn't do anything for me. I don't know really who she faced since she's been in New Japan. So it just really doesn't. It's not been a dial turner for me. So.
Well, Alpha, it's up to you, my friend. What are your thoughts?
I think this is the first rung on the ladder for Mercedes. I don't think this is an ending. I think this is a beginning. You mentioned the show appearances that she might have. Maybe we see her try and go for some rematches against the champ. I don't know. I know they're in a working relationship with Stardom Wrestling. Maybe she goes down there, runs roughshod. Maybe it's a cross-promotion type thing with New Japan. That's what I would do personally. I don't know Japan, but they're also very practical compared to WWE. They like to apply the wrestlers wherever they can. And who knows, maybe Mercedes was just doing it to get the belt, maybe just to get the extra cash, get the name value alone. She knew what her worth was, played it right. And then now maybe she does the off, inter-promotional appearances for New Japan. Maybe those last dates are those. Maybe there's some names she's trying to fight in different companies that she can do a cross promotion with. I can't say for sure. I just think that's my best estimate of what she might be doing. I hope that's what she does, because I saw her triple threat match at Sakura Genesis. I thought it was good. I mean, I'm easy to please, unfortunately, but I think that's why my opinion's valid.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that's one thing a lot of people are wondering, and I'm going to throw another name out there too, and whether it would be as Naomi or Trinity Fatu. That's another name that's been bounced around lately as well, that when Mercedes Moné left the WWE and went to New Japan, a lot of people were figuring that Naomi Trinity Fatu was going to follow. And right now, we basically, since they left the WWE, we really haven't heard much as it relates to her. I mean, again, she had a pretty lengthy career in the WWE. Maybe it's one of those she is waiting for that, I dare say, the $1 million offer. And I don't know, when it comes down to it, I don't think that it's going to be an issue of that. I think it's one of those. I think Mercedes Moné is going to get what is that top dollar, top tier marquee value. And unfortunately, I don't think Naomi's going to get that. So moving right along here. And gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, I told Justin I was going to talk about something to get him fired up. And this is something that we have not done in several weeks. But I'm going to tell you this week, I am just so fired up here. I've got something that's on my mind, and I know that our tech team knows what's here. And Alpha, I don't think you've ever participated in this. I know that Justin hasn't, but I want to throw this out here. I mean, we're going to have Big Daddy P and the Snippets of Truth on here in a few minutes. We're also going to have Rich Abott joining us from WTF Wrestling Theology Fellowship at 8:15. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to officially give the Alpha and Justin Wade an opportunity to take part in a timeless Wrestle Talk Podcast Classic. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Of course, you could have left the music going.
It's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. Everything is fun, everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify.
I have done this segment before.
No human contact, and if you interact, your life's on contract. Your best bet's to stay away, motherfucker. It's just one of those days. It's all about the he says, she says, bullshit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the shoot and shout segment. Now, Alpha, you know what's up. Justin, to give you an idea, since you are the man with the Justin Wade rant counter, which can we get that thrown up here real quick just to make sure?
I believe we're up to 2.
I think we're at 2, but that's going to change a lot real quick. Rant counter is at 2. Basically what happens here, Justin, is it gives you an opportunity to take 30 to 60 seconds to just let loose. If there's something on your mind, if there's a positive, a negative, any of those kinds of things, it gives you your opportunity to vent. It's kind of like I can't think of the word. It's almost like scream therapy, if you will, to give you an opportunity just to kind of let you vent. Alpha, since you say you've been on the shoot and shout before, I'm going to let this go to you first.
Sorry, I'm choking on a pancake. I guess I'll start with the belt just because I didn't get a chance to really talk about it. I have to rant about this just because it's so nearly good. You both said the thoughts that I had about that belt, but the biggest problem for me, it's that the W needs to be smaller and the center plate needs to be bigger. That belt feels way too small. It's not going to look good on most people. Finn will look good with it. Theory will look good with it. Past that, like past 250 pounds, no. And I don't like it. Fix it, WWE. That's all I got, though.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead here, and I've told Justin about this, and Justin's had the opportunity to meet my wife, a wonderful woman, been married 20 plus years. I kind of took her a little bit aback here. Many people know that I've been one of those people that believes in education. I believe in the idea of where you can't take away knowledge. You can't take away those things from people. Once you learn something, it's embedded in your brain, and you can't take an education away. You can't take a degree away from somebody that's earned it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have a bone to pick with a local institution of higher education. I had an opportunity to take a class. Now, being a graduate student, I know that the classes cost a significant more amount of money. I mean, it's a gift. But I had credit at said institution. Why is it that when I'm supposed to get one free class, one free, that I have to pay almost 50% of what the class is worth in fees for things I will not use because it's an online class? I'm
That
paying
math doesn't make
money
sense.
for workout centers, libraries, parking, and I will never use them. Why do I have to pay so much money for this? It's just aggravating. I mean, again, I've had a lot of college classes. I really enjoy the learning process. But, I mean, it really has just struck me that I'm paying almost half of what my tuition would cost for just these couple of things. And it's just aggravating, because the other thing was there too. Because now everything's all digitized. They said that they send everything to me electronically. I got my first bill on Friday, knowing classes started in January. And I got my first official paper bill Friday.
But it's all digital?
It's all digital. But I sat there and I looked at it. I'm like, guys, maybe this isn't necessarily the best way to go. But you know what? I have been expanding my horizons. I've been expanding my knowledge. And again, it just really aggravates me and it grinds my gears on that. Also, real quick, I want to give a shout out, two shout outs actually. Number one, I want to give a shout out to Big Hoss. I know he's been dealing with some family issues as well. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. And also, again, I want to give a shout out to the Allen family. Again, if you get an opportunity to share even a few dollars, make it a point to go to their GoFundMe. Again, they've got a long battle ahead of them. Justin, you've kind of heard two different points of view here with the shoot and shout. You've kind of heard
they really weren't rants, because for one, young Alpha, he's he's a darling, whenever he gets upset, it's
World
sweet.
hasn't upset me too much yet.
Yeah, life hasn't effed him over like it has me. So, anyways, and what you were doing,
Stand back.
you're just bitching. And Roberts, what you were doing wasn't ranting; it was bitching because you're getting old. Okay, because for one, you've been in school going on and off so long. You're ranting because when you started, they were still trying to figure out cool things to do with the light bulb when it first came out. So, times change. Life sucks. Here's the thing Vince McMahon said one time. Life sucks, and then you die.
And then you die.
Yeah. So, this might be two rants, so get ready, scorekeeper. My first rant. AEW, get your motherfucking shit together. Because what is it? We're not even talking about them this week. Okay? They got a pay-per-view coming up. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a Four Corners match, which I thought they should have done for the main event. I really don't like how they're doing this tournament thing. I don't. They're going to have Darby face MJF at the pay-per-view. I don't think that shouldn't close out the show. That's not a match. Either him or Guevara. I don't think they have the strength to close out a show in a singles match. A fatal four-way would have been a barn burner. It would have been between those four.
And that's a good excuse to keep the belt on MJF too. Yeah,
Jungle Man Jack Perry, Guevara, and Darby would have been a fantastic fatal four-way. But the only other story I see coming out of AEW right now is the Blackpool Combat Club, which I do think they need to change since damn William Regal's not even a part of it anymore. Nothing in AEW is really catching my eye. It's nice to see. And also with Ring of Honor, how in the hell are we supposed to keep up? I look on the internet. It takes me fucking forever to find Ring of Honor results. Does anyone know? So this is like TNA back in the day. What the fucking channel was it on? Okay, because I know you got to have Fight Club to be able to watch Ring of Honor, but you should still be able to see results somewhere online.
I agree.
Yeah, I know that Claudio's the champion. I think Joe's still the TV champion, but it's pretty much they're an afterthought because AEW owns them, and or Tony Khan, whatever the fuck. But AEW needs to get their shit together because we're not. The only reason we're talking about them is because I'm bitching about them. Yeah, I guess it's not a rant. I guess I'm bitching too, Luke. You know, besides you and your, I got to park here. I don't even.
Wait, are we keeping score on this one?
Judges.
There we go.
There we go.
That's right.
That registers on there. Also, real quick, while Justin, go ahead.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Don't you interrupt me, you champion sweatshirt looking mother. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, I'm gonna rant about something. I went to the Mariners Cardinals game on Sunday. I was neutral. I wore a Mariners cap and a St. Louis Cardinals T-shirt because I'm from the home state of Missouri. I don't think that made sense. The home state of Missouri. Anyways, what I'm gonna rant about is something that Luke, for some reason, thinks it's acceptable. When I was at that motherfucking game on Sunday, I saw the Mariners fans, I saw the Cardinals fans, and then I saw about 15 to 20 dumb-ass motherfuckers wearing jerseys of other teams that weren't even involved of the motherfucking game. Now, I don't know why they do this. Yay, sports! That's what they're celebrating. Yay, sports! They're not even celebrating the team. They don't even know what team. They got their head so far up their ass, they don't even know what team to root for. So they just throw a jersey on. And it makes them look stupid. Now, it's not about, popularity and what you should wear and the rules, but I don't care. If I didn't have a jersey of the Mariners or Cardinals and I only had a Blue Jays jersey, I wouldn't wear any of that shit. I would just wear a T-shirt and go to the game. Mariners fans, if they have them, like they do in St. Louis, Boston, and Chicago, and New York, that doesn't fly there. If you're in Boston and it's Boston against the Yankees and you're wearing a Baltimore Orioles jersey, you're gonna fly out of there like a Baltimore Oriole. They're gonna fly you out of there. They're gonna kick your ass out of there. So yeah, I think that's rant number 4.
All right. Well, like I said, we got the Justin Wade rant counters out up to 4. It'll be up here momentarily. Want to give a shout out to our good friend Jared Thornton joining us here on the program this evening. Jared, thank you for tuning in. Here to support the Night Owl. Support me. He's happy the Alpha's here. Again, thank you, Jared, for joining us here on the program this evening. Longtime viewer of the program, also longtime supporter of the program. I want to say thank you for tuning in. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you, in just a few minutes, we're going to have the opportunity to be joined by Rich Abott, a man that I had an opportunity to meet at CAC. Really a good guy. Had an opportunity. Hopefully we can share a few CAC stories here in his interview in just a little bit. But, before we get too much farther along here, and I'm making sure here I'm getting things taken care of, I think we're ready for, of course, it's time being 7:55 on a Tuesday night. Let's go ahead real quick and throw it out to our good friend, the one, the only, one of the main faces of the FWWC, of the Wrestle Talk podcast, of the entire family. And that is a man with the snippets of truth. So, ladies and gentlemen, show some love and a round of applause for the one, the only, Big Daddy P.
What's up?
Okay, I got to say this real quick, and I don't think I've ever had to say this on the program. Justin felt left out.
I don't have the hair yet. I got to get the hair back.
And hey, we need to get Gabriel a mic stand.
We do.
It's very loud. I don't know if you know.
Sorry.
Really,
I gotta mute my mic.
Hey, why don't you take a pair of shoes back there behind you and stick them in a pair of shoes, and then all you gotta do is hold the shoe and watch.
I'm gonna use this
Well, I'm
roller
roller
skate.
skates. Look at that, man. And
Wait.
you don't have to worry about holding it.
There we
You got
go.
a mic on wheels.
There we go. How
There
am
you
I
go.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Big Daddy
technology.
P with the snippets of helpful mic propping up.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's official. We are learning brand new technology methods right here, courtesy of Big Daddy P and the Wrestle Talk podcast. Perry, I got to ask you, other than making this work here, I got a couple questions for you. Number one, what are your thoughts of the Justin Wade rant counter?
I thought he was a little bit aggressive. He's very angry. Matter of fact,
Oh no, I'm not angry. It's a stick for the show, Big Daddy, because everybody laughs. So
oh, I had no clue that it was a shoot. I thought you were just naturally an ass, but I wasn't really sure.
oh my
Oh, and the night is
cancel. No,
Number two, I mean, I know we had an opportunity. How have things been in your part of the world? I mean, again, we talked to the Alpha, who's on the East Coast. We got Justin, who's on the West Coast. You and I are representing Middle America. And I got to ask you, how are you doing in your part of the world?
Not bad, man. It's a little bit chilly. Had to cover up the flowers, which was unfortunate because we got some nice veggies growing this year. So, but it got real cold in Tennessee overnight. Is it going to be in the 30s again tonight? No, good. So no more covering up the flowers because, man, they're getting beautiful. I love this. I'm so glad we're out of winter.
Well, I got to tell you, Perry, I had an opportunity, and I was talking with my wife before we went on the air. When we moved into our new house several years ago, there's two things I absolutely love. And Justin, yeah, make fun of me if you want. That's okay. In the front of our house, when we lived in our old house in Alton, we could not grow any kind of plant life at all. And Justin, you've been to my old house. Nothing would grow.
It was like a dirt field.
Yeah, it was about all that was there. But in the front of our house, we inherited a beautiful rose bush. Backside of the house, we inherited a very nice, like huge lilac bush.
Awesome.
And with the smells and the look and all that kind of stuff, I was trying to do, and maybe it'll be next week, I don't know. But I got to figure out a way that I can do an episode. I mean, again, I love my office. I love all the knickknacks and things like that. But I agree with you, Big Daddy. If I could get a chance to be outside and have that as a background, I mean, again, it would be awesome. That's what we might need to do for Alpha. Now he's got a mic stand. Let's put Alpha on remote next week, and he can find somewhere to show us some plant life there in the southeast. And life
As
would be
well,
good.
I can carry the laptop.
Well, we're proud of you, Alpha. You finally managed to find a mic stand, so we're good. Now, moving right along here, Big Daddy. I mean, again, you saw.
Is he getting jacked up there, or is it just me?
I think it's on Luke's end. You coming in, buddy? Skywalker, are you with us?
I'm here and I'm good to go. I don't know if my audio's.
Yeah, that audio. It was more like.
Started to sound a little
I
boring.
think it's been the story of the episode. I mean, I know that Alpha's had it, Justin's had it. So why not add it to me as well? So
Well, maybe it's my turn. Maybe right in the middle of my prayer, I'll get it.
who knows? But like I said, Big Daddy, we've had a couple things here. I mean, again, we've been continuing to support the Allen family. I don't know if you heard earlier in the show, had to do a major bandage change this past week. She's a trooper right now. Again, I want to tell you too, they've managed through GoFundMe. They've added, I believe, just added another $10,000 in the past week.
Wow.
The support was there. Continues to support them. I know also that Hardcore Hoss has been having some real tough times as of late with some family issues. Hopefully we'll have him back on the program in the next couple weeks. I don't really think we've had anything else really come by. And speaking of which now, and again, Aaron Wallace telling us it's the Empire. And again, I think that could be it as well. Like I said, I just want to know, what do you got for us tonight? Because I mean, it just feels like, I think all of us can agree, there's just something in the room tonight. Something that when you bring forth this snippet of truth, that's going to change the whole outlook of tonight's program.
He's a ray of sunshine.
Yeah,
Well,
it's in my heart tonight.
Ultimately, what it comes down, there's always something, and one of the things that I've learned is that problems are guaranteed, but stress is optional. So we have an opportunity to react. And I think, matter of fact, let's ask each of you, and let's have all three of you answer this question. And then I'll give you the right answer. What's the difference between responding and reacting? Go ahead, Lou.
Ooh.
Responding and reacting.
I'm going to put a little spin on this. Proactive, reactive.
Okay. Wade?
The idea of where, and you said responding and reacting. Reacting to me is, as the word says, you are reacting to something. But when you are responding, you are giving an opportunity to voice your thoughts. You're able to voice what you feel. I mean, it's kind of like say I put it more as a proactive, reactive versus reactive and respond.
Gotcha. Wade?
Reacting as if, Alpha says I look like a Farva on a bad day from Super Troopers. My reaction to that would be to shake him like a rag doll. But the other portion of that, the responding, is me saying, I'm responding to it in a positive way. I'd be like, well, you may think I look like Farva on a bad day, but I would say probably like some ignorant mama joke or something to that effect. But that's my responsive part. But no, all jokes aside, reacting is how you take something someone I believe has said to you. Responding is the opposite, the more mature way. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Alpha?
I like, this is the best way I can understand it. It's gut feeling versus intuition. Gut feeling, it's just like the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and then intuition is you looking at a situation and going, okay, I should probably react accordingly.
Now, all three of you got pretty close, but the answer, the difference between responding and reacting, 5 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Take 5 seconds and consider, which is what you guys were talking about. I'm just making it simple because, again, if you look back in the past and how you've responded to situations, and then you've seen situations where you've reacted to situations. Luke, you got it pretty much right on the target as far as what it really comes down to motive. If you're the type of person where you respond to everything because you're constantly being beaten up on, it's kind of like the story about the fish that's inside the fish tank, and you feed the fish on one side and it comes and gets the food, and then you take a piece of glass, you put it in the middle and you put it in and he hits the glass, but he still tries to go after the food. Well, after a while, what happens? He stops hitting the glass. When you pull the glass up and drop the food, he ain't going to that food because he's been programmed. So many of us have been programmed with negativity. If someone says, hey, you're always used to being attacked on. But the fact is no matter what happens, no matter what they say, no matter what the situation is, if you can take it for what it is and recognize that whether if it's a positive or a negative, take a couple moments, think about what you're going to say, and then say it. And I think that if you can just take even 3 seconds, I mean, I can't tell you how many times someone comes to me and I'll be at Walmart and they know Big Daddy P at Walmart. Hey, Big Daddy P, how you doing? Well, in the past, I used to always say to him, well, my back hurts. I've gone through surgery and da-da-da-da-da. And next thing I know, now when people ask me how I'm doing, my answer is completely different. Instead of looking at the things that are going wrong with me, I then begin to tell them some of the things that are positive, because ultimately they don't want to hear it anyway. So, you know what I mean? It's just a matter of just taking the time to respond in a way, because usually if you're going to react, that means you're going to say things that you're going to wish you didn't say. So a wise man once told me, make sure the words that come out of your mouth are sweet. just in case you have to eat them yourself.
Very true. And again, that's one of the things you talk about, Perry, is the idea of where too many people in life have that knee-jerk reaction. They have to immediately say something. And I like in what you said, a lot of people say, count to 5, count to 10, gain your composure. And I don't want to use it this way, but it's about the easiest way to go. Alpha is a lot younger. He's the young one here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. I remember when I was his age. And there were a lot of times I was a knee-jerk reaction.
How old is he?
I'm 24.
A lot younger than us.
24. Man, I was a dad already. Sheesh.
Yeah. But I mean, again, when you sit there and you look at it, though, I mean, again, it's one of those, I think the phrase would be with age comes experience. And that's one of those things, like you said, I really agree with you here. On the idea of reaction versus response. Now, my other question to you, Big Daddy, is the idea of when it comes down to things, what piece of advice? I mean, again, you talk about the timing but what piece of advice do you have for those that are kind of having to experience this? Because I mean, again, there's times where things could just pull at your heartstrings. What would you look at as relationship to this? Because I mean, again, it's not easy to have reservation. Is there anything that you might share to the listeners that would be to kind of give them a little bit of guidance?
Yeah. Look at our example, Jesus, right? He was persecuted. He was beaten, right? But he never, ever said anything against him. He could have pulled himself down off there. But do you think if the devil really knew that by sending Christ to the cross was going to defeat him, he would have allowed it to happen? And the answer is no. So my advice for you is before you jump to any conclusions on what you think the situation is going to be, allow some time to simmer, to think about. You don't always have to answer. Just because somebody asks you a question doesn't mean you have to answer it right away. And a lot of times, especially in sales and negotiating, they always say whoever speaks first loses. So ultimately, if you're running into a situation, I'll just use finances because that's where I struggle most of the time. I mean, I had $600 in car repairs this week. So, and I wasn't really prepared for that, but we had it. And so we were able to do it. But if I would have gotten upset about it, if I would have lost my composure or lost my cool, I always have to remember that everything that I do, other people watch. And if they know that I'm a believer in the Lord and I put my faith and trust in him and I can preach that I always do the right thing, well, I'm always being watched. So I need to make sure that everything that I do does represent the Lord. And it's hard to do that today because, again, he knows what we're going to go through. So because he knows what we're going to go through, we have to remember that he is not surprised by what we're going through. We might be, but we've got to rest in him. Again, I go back to my shirt last week that said Jesus took naps. While the boat was storming and while everything was going crazy, everybody was freaking out. And they woke up the Lord, woke him up and said, Lord, aren't you afraid we're going to perish? And he told the winds, hush. And they hushed. Now, we don't have the ability to make the winds hush. Trust me, if I could, I would. But I don't. But I know the one who does. So if I know that he's allowing a situation to come to me, there's a reason for it. I know it's not to hurt me because he loves me. So that means there's something I've got to take out of this situation. There's a lesson that I have to learn. And I might not know the answer right away. It might take a day, a week, a month, a year. I got married at 20, married at 30, married at 40, married at 49. You think I wanted that? No. You think I had a lot of resentment towards God because of that? Absolutely. But when I realized that each situation was unique in its own and had its own set of facts that I didn't have, made me realize that he has all the facts. So even though we don't have all the facts in the situation, no matter what it is, it could be losing someone, it could be a physical situation that you're dealing with, a car situation, whatever it is, He just wants to know, do you trust him? So right now, if you're listening to this, maybe you're listening to this because he wants to know if you're going to trust him. So in order to know if you're going to, if he's trustworthy or not, well, you're going to have to trust him and look at the past. That's why he gave us the Bible. There is not a single man or woman in that Bible who had it all together. They didn't. Each one of them had their own situations. But it's fascinating because even David, who was labeled by God as a man after God's own heart, he gave him that label after he committed murder and rape. So don't think that whatever mistakes you might have made in the past can stop him from loving you, because it doesn't. He loves you no matter what you do. That's why mass murderers, people who are on death row, what makes a religious Christian more angry is when a guy on death row, right before he dies, gives his heart to the Lord. Sounds like the thief on the cross, doesn't it? Who himself, there were two of them on there, one of them to the left, one to the right. The one on the left said, Lord, when you go, remember me. The other one didn't care who the Lord was. Who do you think was in paradise that day? The one who put his faith and trust in him. So don't let religion stop you from trusting him. And that is my snippet of truth today, is trust him because of who he is, not because of what you've done or who you are.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, Perry, that hit, that put exactly what you always look at it from a perspective. Sometimes there's just that one little piece you got to have, and that hit home. Like I said,
I didn't always have it. Alpha, I didn't get saved till I was 31, man. I'm 53 now. So, or am I 52 now? I can never remember how old I am. How old did I turn? 53. Okay. You see? So just be patient with yourself, because again, there is no age too late. There is no situation too dire. So just continue to trust him, continue to love one another. Because right now, man, with everything going on right now, and I mean from politics to the government to China to everything that's going on, this is not new to God. He's seen this game thousands of times. What's different from then until now is that we're a part of now. So you might look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four gospels, and think they were special men. They weren't. But there's a fifth gospel, and that's the gospel according to you, and people read you every day. The question is, what do they read? So let them read love. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to go to church 7 days a week. It ain't nothing about that. It's a one-on-one with him, and it's all about loving each other, even with those that are unlovable. Man, he said, pray for those who are against you. It's not easy. I have 3 ex-wives, okay? I could wish evil on all 3 of them. The first one I battle the hardest with because I was mistreated the most, but I have to remember that he died for her. He brought her into this world. She's still living. Now, if I hurt her, I would go to jail, okay? So that would be dumb, because then I wouldn't be on here and I wouldn't be able to encourage you guys. So again, that takes us back to responding and reacting. Just chill out, rest, enjoy the gift that God has given you, which is called life. And if he sees it fit for us to meet next week, then I'll tell you something else that he gives me. But it ain't me, it's him. He just uses me as a vessel of grace to communicate truth to anybody that's listening. And I already know, Luke, that, and again, all 3 of you, I've only known for a short period of time. But yet you treat me as if you've known me as long as Renee and Joe have known me. Mm-hmm. So thank you for loving me, for allowing me to be on here. You don't have to let me on here. You could listen to some of the fans that say, we hate when that preacher comes on, or when we don't like, they're hurting people. So if anybody ever comes at you about me, those are the ones we need to pray for. Those are the ones we need to add to our prayer requests, because is there any heart not soft enough for the Lord or too hard for the Lord? No. I mean, how many people could be upset if Hitler is in heaven right now? We don't know if before he shot himself, he gave his life to the Lord. We have no idea. But the fact is, there are going to be people in heaven that we're not going to realize went, and it really doesn't matter, because when we get there, we're going to be worshiping him anyway. So if you think church is long now, wait till you get to heaven.
Well, Big Daddy, like I said, you always lay it on the line each and every week. And before we let you go, this is part of our program each and every week. We really haven't had a lot of requests this week, but I think you've really hit things right on the head this week. We're going to go ahead and close out the Snippets of Truth this evening. We're going to go ahead and turn things back over to you to kind of bring some closure to tonight's edition of the Snippets of Truth.
You got it. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for your faithfulness and for your love and for your mercy and all that you continue to do to provide for our needs each and every day. While there are bombs going off in countries through people's homes, while there is death and destruction in cities all across this world, we thank you for what you've given us at this moment, because maybe we're not under persecution. But we know that there's going to come a time that your Bible, your word, is going to be banned. They're already trying to pass laws in Israel to not allow you to share the gospel. And I know that the future, as much as I want it to look bright, tells a different story. So, Father, give us the strength while we're here to encourage one another. Continue to open every door that needs to be opened, close every door that needs to be closed. Father, for those that are hurting right now who've lost somebody recently, Father, we know that we can't return them back. We know that all we have is their memories, but I pray that you would give them comfort. Remind them of all the good things, especially those who might have lost somebody who maybe they didn't like. Father, we know that you allow things to happen to those who believe and those who don't believe. But right now, Father, I just want to let anybody who's watching know, hear the good news, a little bit of fresh news today, that when you came and you sacrificed yourself on that cross for us, you did it on our behalf. You had us in mind, all of us. You didn't come to bring peace. You came to bring a sword. You came to divide, to bring truth. Because this world is run by the devil. It is his world right now. Even though you are the sovereign king and you control every situation, and you allow bad situations to happen and you allow good situations to happen, we know that all things are possible and done through you. And so we thank you so much for this time. I thank you for my brothers. I thank you for their continued love and support. And Father, I just pray that you continue to bless the Wrestle Talk podcast, that you bring them from the north, from the south, from the east, and from the west, that they would not only grow in the grace and knowledge of who you are, but that they would just know that you're ready to answer their. May they feel free to come to you today and to trust in you today. Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. It says it is written that by believing that Jesus is the Christ, that we would have eternal life. To have faith alone in Christ alone means all you have to do is put your faith and trust in him, and you can do it right now. There are no works required. You don't have to pay anything. You've heard what he's done. The real question is do you believe it? The biggest question that we can answer today is, what do we think of Christ? And may we honor and respect and adore him and continue to serve him with grateful hearts. We thank you so much, and we love you. For all the requests that we did not hear, Father, that were unspoken, I thank you in advance for answering their prayers. We love you so much, and we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy P, what more can you say? Now, Big Daddy P, I'm going to level with you here. And this is probably one of the most unique transitions I've ever had to make. In just a few moments, we're going to be joined by a gentleman by the name of Rich Abott, a man who formed the professional wrestling. I don't even necessarily completely consider it a promotion, because there are so many other pieces to it. It's called Wrestling Theology Fellowship. It's out of the state of Indiana. Wow. And it's talking the idea of kind of like we do each and every week, the idea of taking professional wrestling and a religious aspect, religious component, a religious fellowship, and bringing it all together under one roof. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to be one of those where I really hope that when people view the Wrestle Talk podcast, you can see that we do this each and every week, but there are a lot of promotions that can find the way to make those connections. And Big Daddy P, like I said, I want to say thank you for coming on the program, and we're going to continue to a certain degree. We're going to continue what you've brought forward here in the Snippets of Truth this week on throughout the rest of the show. And again, I want to say thank you. We look forward to seeing you right back here next week.
You got it, brother. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing this interview.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy P with the Snippets of Truth. Now, I'm going to go ahead here and introduce, because it is 8:21. We're a little bit behind schedule, but that's totally okay. I want to go ahead and I want to tell a little story before I introduce this man. I had an opportunity, and Justin, I know you've known me for many, many years. What was one of the biggest dreams I had it being in professional wrestling? One of the biggest dreams I had was to go where?
You're leaving me at a loss for words, my friend. We've had a lot of conversations in almost 20 years of knowing one another.
Well, I'll give you a hint. You go to Vegas.
Go to Mania.
Well, I want to go to Mania.
No, I'm sorry. Cauliflower Alley Club. We always talked about that.
And I had an opportunity here. We're going to be joined here in a minute by a man that I'm not going to fib. I was really looking forward to meeting a wide variety of new people when I was at the CAC. And of all things, and I'm going to share this story, I had an opportunity to meet our next guest, our next member of the Wrestle Talk podcast family. When we were sitting outside of the hotel, we were actually sitting at the CAC mixer, if you will. And when we sat at the mixer, I had an opportunity to meet this man. And I was really very pleasantly surprised, not only in his love for professional wrestling, but the message that his promotion, that being Wrestling Theology Fellowship, brings forward. And as I said before, I don't necessarily want to call it a promotion. I don't necessarily want to call it a church. It really is a blend of the two. It's a labor of love, as many of us say, with the world of professional wrestling. And I remember talking with him. I know that the Night Owl spoken with him as well while we were in Vegas. We want to make it a point to have your organization here on the program. And it's taken several months. I mean, again, it's from September to April. But tonight we're going to have the opportunity to have a man who really brings a completely different, not just look at professional wrestling, but in life in general. I want to go ahead and welcome, and if our media department will be ready, I want to go ahead and welcome the founder of Wrestling Theology Fellowship to the Wrestle Talk podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a round of applause for the one and only Abott.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine, Rich. And like I said, I had to share that story because when we had the opportunity to meet in Las Vegas back in September, I mean, I got to tell you, it was definitely an eye-opening experience, not just for the professional wrestling aspect of it, but I mean, it really is just a cool experience, a cool project that you've put forward. You've put, as I said, a labor of love into. And I do want to ask you a question before we get started. I had an opportunity. You and I have been friends on social media for a while. And you, like the three of us, both Justin Wade, the Alpha, have been a longtime professional wrestling fan. And I saw a picture of you holding a very old school championship belt. And for those that don't know, I mean, it really reminded me, to a certain degree, it reminded me of what many people would call the Burke, the NWA World Women's Championship. But it was a little bit different. Can you tell us, being the wrestling fan that you are, can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because that, for me, being a wrestling fan, a member of the wrestling community, and honestly, a huge fan of pro wrestling belts, Can you share a little bit about that that picture and that belt that you had an opportunity to hold? Because I know there's a pretty big importance to that championship.
Yeah, so I actually was at it's Circleville, Ohio. What's his face? Fantastics.
Bobby Fulton?
Bobby Fulton's show. He had this big event. He has pretty big events with like a big names come in. And I was there with Scott Romer, which he was at CAC with me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove over there with him, and we were next to that belt actually all day long. And I just went over, and I can't remember who held it, but it was basically there on loan from a museum. And I think I want to say that the person that belt was owned by, the widow was there with the belt. And I don't remember who it was, but I thought it was a really cool belt, and I just wanted to get a picture with it, honestly. I don't really have a whole lot of backstory on the belt itself. And I wish I remember who actually it was that held it, but it was a really cool belt. Enjoyed checking it out, and I'm sure I have something about it. I'll figure out what it was and get back with you about that.
Well, I got to tell you right now, Rich, I mean, again, having the opportunity to have you here on the program really has been months in the making. And I want to, first of all, welcome you to the program here again. And I just want to kind of talk about WTF, Wrestling Theology Fellowship. I want to talk about it. But before I do, one of the things I noticed when I was looking at some of the press information, you, much like all of us, talk about being pretty much a professional wrestling fan pretty much since birth. And my question to you is, can you describe a little bit of your first kind of dabbling, your first experiences in the world of professional wrestling, as far as things that you would watch? Were there particular wrestlers that you really enjoyed watching? Was there a particular program or particular promotion that really hit home with you?
Yeah, so when I started out watching, I was only 2 years old. So it was I was born in 84. I'm the same age as WrestleMania. So I was like 2, and we were, funny enough, we were at church, and a kid had a Hulk Hogan action figure. And I liked the action figure. And then later, I think my grandma bought my first Hulk Hogan action figure. I didn't know that he was a real person. And then I saw him on TV, and I just became hooked by then, really. And I was the biggest Hulkamaniac in the world at that time, you know. Actually, so the coolest thing, my dad took me to see Hulk versus Andre here in Indianapolis on my dad's shoulders, because I was 3 years old, almost 4. And I got to see the double referee thing and all that. And you can actually see me. You can see me on video if you slow-mo it. when Jimmy Hart and the Honky Tonk Man are coming down to ringside. And I probably even have it on my Facebook page somewhere where I circled myself, because I actually had those images printed off, because I've become kind of good friends with Jimmy Hart a little bit at one point in time. So I actually had the frames autographed by Jimmy Hart, which is pretty cool.
Well, I can tell you right now, Rich, I mean, again, hearing that story, I mean, I'm just in awe. And speaking of being in awe, I mean, again, talked about how the CAC has been very much following of the Wrestle Talk podcast. I want to go ahead. A good friend of both of ours, we met at the CAC. I know you had an opportunity to sit down and talk with him a little bit. Our good buddy Herb Simmons is actually tuned into the program right now. Chris, you can go ahead and bring that up backstage here. I don't know if he's been working on some tech issues here this evening, but we've got Herb Simmons, one of the executive members of the CAC, tuning in this evening. Now, I want to switch gears here for just a minute. I want to switch gears to Wrestling Theology Fellowship. And going ahead and going back and looking at my research, it was the idea, like you said, of bringing traditional wrestling fans and non-wrestling fans, Christians and non-Christians together. I've got to ask you, with putting there, what made you have this idea of taking so many different, literally polar opposites in some cases, and bringing them together under such a unique banner?
Yeah, so I guess to shorten my story just a little bit, because it's a long story, really. I was not a Christian back in 2011. I wasn't cool with God at all. And something happened, and ended up, going to church. And there's a lot of video of that on our wrestling shows that you can take a look at, and I can go into that at a different time. I don't want to go into all that now because it's such a long story. But basically, I fell away from God for a long time, and then I started coming back to God through a guy named Darren Earlywine, who did this ministry called Pub Theology. And Pub Theology happened in bars. Is that me making that noise?
I don't know. It might be, but like I said, it's been very, very sporadic. So,
okay, I can turn my audio down if I need to.
Just maybe just a little bit, but like I said, I think that's what's there. But go ahead and continue.
Okay, so Darren Earlywine, I showed up at a church one day because of my situation at that time, and he was talking about real people with real problems, and I had some real problems going on in my life. And he told the story of Mary and Joseph, and it was around Christmas time. And basically, he kind of said, Mary and Joseph, like, they weren't really super happy that all this happened. They kind of screwed up their life by giving them Jesus and all that, and told the story in a way I never heard before. And the idea of it was that if your life's messed up right now, maybe God's working in it. And at that time, I wasn't super into Christianity. I just kind of was like lost and trying to find myself. And but I liked what he had to say, so I started going to his Pub Theology events, and I started helping out because I actually am a video editor, multimedia specialist. So I was kind of helping out, setting up their equipment and video in the night every once in a while. And so I became close with him. Eventually, I ended up coming to the Lord and getting baptized and all that. And then I find myself in a morning huddle with a bunch of Christian guys. And, I'm still a wrestling fan. I've never lost my wrestling fandom. So that weekend I had went to a wrestling convention, and I was talking about how I'd met Bret Hart and all these other guys, and how cool it was. And one of the guys just kind of said, hey, you should take your love of wrestling and combine it with your newfound love of, Jesus Christ. And I was like, that's interesting, but how do I do that? And basically, I started it out as just inviting friends over and wrestling fans over to watch wrestling. And during commercial breaks, maybe we try to talk about God a little bit. And we did that. And then somebody else his name is Tom Cheatham here in town. He actually wanted to help out even more. So he helped me in getting funding. And we brought Lex Luger and Nikita Koloff in for a Q&A event. And we had them speak at church on Sunday morning, and then that night we had them at a bar talking about God. We had like an hour of like talking about their careers and Q&A with the fans and all that. And then the last like half hour or hour was about their faith story and them coming to Christ. So that turned out to be really cool. So my thought was, we're going to keep doing that. Well, it didn't really work out as well as I'd hoped, because we wanted to do it like every month for every wrestling pay-per-view, bring a guy in. But anyway, so we ended up instead. I ended up bringing in Jimmy Hart to a convention, and we had him there. And then some things just kind of snowballed, and I reached out to a local promotion, and I told them, like, hey, you guys wanted to talk about working with the wrestling theology. I talked to my church because they had asked me about a specific date. My church approved the date, and I was like, we can do a wrestling show at the church. And then they backed out, and they didn't want to do it. And I don't remember exactly why, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to do the show anymore. I think they wanted to do it later, but I had already had this date approved by the church. So I was like, well, I think we can. At this point, I'd been going to indie shows with fans and stuff. And I've kind of become like somewhat known by some of the wrestlers. So I kind of hooked up with one of the wrestlers. And then I kind of put them as booker and asked them to book the show for me and get talent and all that. So we ended up doing our first wrestling show, and we had Bushwhacker Luke at the first show, and Ricardo Rodriguez and a few others. And then we did another show, and then it just became a monthly thing. And then now I guess we're a wrestling promotion. But at every wrestling show, we would do a little short message. And I got that concept from Darren Earlywine in Pub Theology, because what they would do at these Pub Theology events is it would be like a concert. And they would sing secular music. It wasn't like Christian music or whatever. And it was at a bar. People were drinking. And they would always have like two things. They would either have somebody there to talk about a charity or something positive going on in the area, or both. Darren would get up and talk for like 10 minutes and share just a little bit of faith, but it wasn't overkill, and it wasn't like a full-on 30-minute 45-minute hour-long message or anything like that. And then he would kind of just lay back, and people could drink a beer with him and talk about God, and I kind of like that concept. I kind of feel like I'm a product of Pub Theology, and I talked to Darren and got his approval that I could call it Wrestling Theology, because I was like, hey, why don't we call it Wrestling Theology Fellowship? It'd be like WTF. And so we're a Christian organization now that's called WTF. So that's kind of what we do, though, is now we do like 10 minutes in the ring talking about God. It might be me. It might be somebody else. I try to get the pastors to come in and talk because it's at the church. And I feel like it's a better call to action to have them come to this church if you've got the guy that's the pastor talking in the ring. But that's a little difficult sometimes. And we usually have somebody there. If I can't find anyone else, I'll fill the time. I don't like being on stage or in a ring and talking in public, but I do it because it has to be done. That's the whole point of the shows. So anyway, that's kind of the concept of Wrestling Theology. Now, I do want to also kind of clarify about Wrestling Theology is it's not Christian wrestlers wrestling at our show. Like, I book everybody. Like, I book, as long as they're a person of peace and they're not going around saying I hate God and I hate, this or that, because I can't really, a person of peace is somebody different than somebody that's anti-religion or anti-God. But we book people and wrestlers that are not Christians, and we do that on purpose because I don't view this as just a ministry for the fans. I also view it as a ministry for the wrestlers, because in my experience, being on the team and being part of the team and part of the show actually can be more effective than just going and watching. It's like if you go to church, or are you on the team and filming, doing like running a camera for the church, So that's kind of in a nutshell the concept, the idea, and how it became a thing. And sorry, that's a long-winded reason and story why, but there it is.
Well, Rich, I mean, again, when you sit here and look at it, I mean, again, I just went back and looked at the list through your website of some of the wrestlers who've been on your events that have come on the Wrestle Talk podcast. I mean, again, my list is pretty lengthy here. Charlie Cruel, Dale Patricks, Herzog, Marianne Fontaine, Myron Reed, Shane Mercer, Sierra Ace Austin, the Death Samurai Akira, Alley Cat, Amazing Maria, Bryce Benjamin, Brian Pillman Jr., Haley Shadows, Jocelyn Navarro, KLD, Kevin Lee Davidson. I mean, again, that's a pretty good amount of names that people that listen to the Wrestle Talk podcast would be familiar with. I mean, again, as I said earlier, it's really a unique experience of how you're able to take professional wrestling and a religious belief background and unify the two of them in such a positive message. And I'm going to go ahead here at this point. Like I said, I'm not the only one here. We've got Justin Wade and we've got the Alpha here. They're both, to give you an idea, we are literally coast to coast here. Justin's on the West Coast, the Alpha's on the East Coast. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to my broadcast colleagues here because I know they've got some questions regarding yourself and WTF as well. So, gentlemen, Alpha, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you.
Oh, I actually didn't really have any questions for Luke. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and pass things over to Justin here. So, Justin, you're with Rich Abbott of Wrestling Theology Fellowship right here on the Talk Podcast.
Body regarding your question.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Hold on. He is breaking up here on the audio here. Hold on one second. We're gonna see if we can get that. Hold on 1 second here. He's gonna hold on now. He's back on mute here. So hold on 1 second here. Technology's doing great when it cooperates for us.
Hear me now?
Yes, now you're good, Justin.
I do apologize, Rich. Thanks for being on the show, man. I wanted to know, man, with your promotion, have you experienced any pushback from anybody regarding your take on wrestling and theology? Putting two and two together, have you seen any pushback since you've been doing this?
From which side, the church or the wrestlers?
From anything negative, regarding this, because I do think it's a perfect outlet because I was raised Catholic. I don't practice very much as I used to.
So,
in certain aspects of life, but it always concerns me because there are negative people out there that have negative views on putting two and two together, wrestling and theology. So,
well, I mean, I have had pushback on both sides, really, in some instances. Not really the wrestlers as much. I mean, the wrestlers kind of view it as, hey, I'm getting booked. They want to be booked. They want to get and the other thing that I've done in the 5 or 6 years that I've promoted shows is, I've done my best to try to show them that I'm not like a shady promoter or somebody that's going to stiff them. They always got the envelope with the money that they say they were going to get. They always get paid. So the wrestlers, and I have a pretty good reputation now in the area. So people say, hey, this guy Rich from Wrestling Theology reached out to me. Half the time now in my area, they know who we are because we have really good production because that's what I do. And then two, they know from the other wrestlers that I've got a good reputation of, paying everybody what I say I'm going to pay them. So the wrestlers, I don't really have too much pushback from. I mean, there might have been 1 or 2 instances where there was issues with somebody, but I don't like dwelling or talking about them or those issues. And for, just I don't like the drama and all that. But with the church, I mean, I love the church. The church has been very supportive of wrestling theology, but there have been like instances, and maybe not the church itself, but certain people maybe from the church where there might have been fans that didn't like something that they saw that came to support the ministry from the church. Because we don't mix the wrestling and the Christian aspect much, because I view it as every time I've seen that done before, like I went to a Ted DiBiase show like 20 years ago where he tried to do that, and it came off very like corny and cheesy. And I don't want the ministry part to come off cheesy, and I don't want the wrestling to come off cheesy. So let's just keep them separate, you know?
Natural.
Yeah. So, you know, to answer your question, yes, I don't really want to go into super detail about things because I don't want either side to find out that I was talking about it too much. But yeah, there is instances where the church will say something and I'm like, what? And, you know, early on too, there was things that no longer are issues, but like, you know, one thing that the church, and they're a very progressive church, but they were like, you can't have shirtless guys on the poster. And I'm like, we're doing it in the sanctuary, and they're going to be shirtless when they wrestle in there. So just interesting. And I actually did run one show outside of my local, my regular church. It was like a show that they wanted us to bring in, a wrestling show for their youth group. And they did require all the wrestlers to keep shirts on. It's the weirdest thing in the world to me. I don't understand it. They were actually showing videos of Hulk Hogan posing on the screen before our show started.
Did they edit a shirt on him?
No, they were fine with Hulk Hogan without a shirt.
Oh, okay.
But,
Terry Bollea gets special treatment.
Yeah. But, you know, it's interesting, some of the things that I've come up with from both sides, really. But, yeah, I've had pushback. But for the most part, and people understand what we are and what we're doing, and the church understands that. I think the church really stopped getting on my case when they started seeing the people that came to my shows showing up on Sunday morning. And the really cool thing is now they like to promote the wrestling theology as like the most unique and coolest, you know, outpost. We're considered an outpost of the church. And that, you know, it's brought more people to Christ than any other outpost, according to them. And I think it's brought more people's ears to Christ because a lot of the people don't come to church. They're just wrestling fans. And I actually have had, you know, people that are self-professed, you know, Satanists, or, you know, people that are not down with Christ at all. They come out to the shows because they love wrestling. And they'll actually walk out when we do the message. But they're coming to the wrestling show at a church. So, you know, baby steps. I think, you know, there's just, we're reaching so many different people. And we're not just doing the shows. Like, we just were at the Squared Circle Expo here in Indianapolis like a year or two ago. Or no, not a year or two ago, a week ago. We had Tony Atlas and Ace Austin at our table doing autographs. And those were the people that would bring people to the table. But then I had Action Bibles, and these Bibles are the comic book Bibles. And they were donated by a good friend of mine. You know, he passed away actually a couple of years ago of COVID. But a long time ago, he donated a whole bunch of stuff to me. And I have these cases of these Bibles. So I took them over and I handed them out. It was actually Easter weekend. And I handed them out. No charge, you know, people wanted a full-on comic book Bible, and we just gave it to them and say Happy Easter, you know. And we actually, there's a really cool picture. I don't know if you saw it. I gave one to a kid that came up and was talking to Tony Atlas, and I didn't know who it was at the time. It was Mickey James's kid. And so we ended up getting a picture together with her and all that. And it was a really cool thing too.
That's awesome.
I kind of ramble. Sorry.
we got time to fill, brother. Don't worry about it.
And Rich, just to give you an idea here, I want to give you a little piece of insight here. Our good friend, as we said earlier on, Herb Simmons, is tuning into the program, and Herb in the comments made a really good comment, really interesting comment. And Chris, if you could go ahead, I'm hoping that the technology issue's been taken care of. I'll just leave it right there.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those always putting out there. Our good friend Herb Simmons making that message very apparent here this evening. Now, I do want to take a minute here and throw things back to Justin, but I do have at least one more question before we move on to the next segment. So, Justin, I'm going to throw things back over to you.
Yeah, that's fine. No, just with I like seeing these two things together. Like I said, I don't practice as much as I used to. I believe in heaven and hell, but it just what I want to know is, do you believe that little by little, you guys think you guys are because you said you have all aspects of people come into your wrestling shows. Do you believe little by little you're making a positive niche in the theology community?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure we're doing a positive. We're giving a positive outlook to people, and we go out there, and I try not to do politics. I don't try to do anything that's too controversial, because I don't like politics myself. I'm not political. I just I have my faith, but outside of that, I'm not trying to be somebody that's trying to like rock the boat of people's opinions and stuff like that. In fact, I have a very laid back way of trying to talk about God to people, and I don't like to when I was a non-Christian and anti-God and all that in my life, I hated it when people were trying to preach to me. So I try not to preach so much as just say, hey, maybe think about this or maybe think about that. And I think what Herb may have been talking about was Ephesians 6:12, which is one that we use a lot. And, that's wrestling against flesh and blood. Our struggle is not against flesh, or our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the power of the dark world, and against the spiritual force of evil in the heavenly realms. So, that's one of the things we actually used to put on everything we did. And basically because, it had wrestling in it. And then, before you move on, I'd like to just ask you guys a question if I could.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, Rich.
So, who are the biggest stars and most popular wrestlers in pro wrestling history?
Well, I'm going to say, I dare say, the old guy here in the community. Many people would consider the first real star to be Hulk Hogan, but if you go back and you look even farther into things, I mean, you can even go back to the days of, I'd even go back to like Ed Strangler Lewis and Stanislaus Zbyszko and things along the line. It really, to me, it would depend on what you would consider to be a superstar.
Yeah. What about you guys, the other two of you, Alpha and?
You want to take this, Justin, or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll take it first. Rich,
right.
I'm sorry, but the mic cut out when you were asking the question. What was the question?
I was asking, who are the biggest stars and most popular wrestlers in pro wrestling history, do you think?
In my opinion, I guess it's because here's the thing. Roberts just said Ed Strangler Lewis. I do think he was a big name, but when people, it's what people are thinking about nowadays. Like, basically, I guess it's your Mount Rushmore. You got Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, and The Undertaker. Those four right there are the biggest. One of the biggest in my life would be Sting. I always was a big Sting fan from back when I first saw him on WCW Saturday Night in August of '93, taking on Ric Flair, and it was an hour-long world heavyweight title match. And I remember I was bawling my eyes.
Hold on a minute here.
Flair won by countout. So, that Sting is the biggest in my opinion. But guys like Hogan, guys like Harley Race, you got the Von Erichs. It just depends on the section of the United States you ask who the biggest superstars in the history of wrestling are.
Yeah,
I think too, honestly, Rich, when you're talking with Alpha not only brings a different part of the country, but also he brings a different age bracket. So, Alpha, your thoughts? What makes somebody a superstar? What are the superstars? What are those main event draws?
Well, people like to throw the word superstar out a lot when we're talking about people now. And to be fair, yes, because we have a lot of people that when they finally hang up the boots, we can really talk about how influential this is. I'm talking like 20 years down the line when they finally pack it up. But for people like me and for a lot of wrestling fans, I think you really ought to aspire when you're talking about legendary status, people who shift the very way we look at wrestling. I think you got to look internationally. Not to say that there's not, you guys have listed all the American guys. That's why I got to go everywhere else. But the two biggest ones I can think of are El Santo, just from a sheer wrestling merger of somebody where people thought this dude was Mexican Superman. Like, this was the realest thing. And you guys have heard the story that he never took his mask off. He committed to this character to the point of, honestly, infamy. Like, people just, you say the word El Santo and we all know what it is, you know? And then the other one is Karl Gotch.
Yes.
Just because historically, the idea that a man can transcend language, transcend difference, and become a legend that people can look up to and that people can say shape the world of Japanese wrestling for history. I think those are the two biggest contentions for me, to answer the question, at least.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, again, we've got a wide variety here.
So
hopefully we answer your question.
Those are good good answers. Now, my answer would probably be like Hulk Hogan. I think The Rock is probably the biggest because he transcended wrestling altogether. Like Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, you know, the reason I asked this question, I have a reason. And not all of them that you mentioned are going to fall into this category, but there's one thing that almost all of these big, great, superstar, popular, good guys have in common. Almost all of them started off as a bad guy heel. Right? or they got over as a heel before they became the big baby face of the company.
Mm-hmm.
So, or some of them just were always a heel. But the reason that I bring that up, and you know, I'm just going to go into a little bit here. I want to tell you about one guy. He was the meanest, dirtiest, most evil guy in history. His name was Saul.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about Saul Goodman.
or Sal Kretschmann either.
Yeah, or Saul Kretschmann. Yeah. I'm talking about Saul from the New Testament in the Bible. And I think people gloss over how evil of a person Saul once was. Like, he hunted down Christians because of their faith. He imprisoned them. But he didn't stop there. Like, he also tortured Christians. He murdered them. And now take a minute to think, what kind of, like, if that person was alive today,
canceled,
would there be any kind of redemption for him at all? You know? And I don't know, but here's the thing. He encountered God, the Son of God, Jesus Christ. And what's even crazier is this is one after Jesus was already died on the cross. So this is like later on. He'd already died. He'd already come back and all that. And this is later on, actually. And, you know, most people think that, okay, yeah, Saul met him and that was it. But that's not what happened. Like, Jesus actually took his sight away and took away the way he can no longer see the world as he once saw it. He took his sight away, and after 3 days of blindness, Saul was visited by a Christian man named Ananias. And Ananias was one of the people that Saul was hunting. And he knew this, and he was like, I don't want to go there. He's going to murder me. But Jesus, or, you know, God, Jesus, whichever one you want to talk says, we want you to go there. And he goes there, and he heals his eyes, and he's able to see again. And now Saul is seeing the world in a whole new light. And Saul goes on to, you know, become probably the biggest baby face of the Bible, and wrote half of the New Testament, if not more. And basically he, ended up dying, talking, telling people about God, doing all the stuff that actually he was persecuting before. And I say this, because this is an analogy I like to use with wrestling fans. Like your biggest bad guys can become the biggest good guy.
Redemption.
And there is redemption. So like
It's doable.
Yeah, and almost anybody in this world today who's hearing this story or that if they feel like they are too bad for redemption in Jesus Christ, I'm just telling you that you're probably not as bad as Paul, who was Saul. And, you can have redemption and you're never too far from God to have life change. So that's one of the messages I like to, tell people and give a little wrestling twist to it. I hope that was okay for me to share that with you guys.
Good. Most definitely. And speaking of which, we're talking about redemption, and we're going to make a transition here.
Oh, no.
We've talked about WTF, and we're going to talk about, for just a minute here, we're going to talk about your upcoming event, Cruel Summer.
Yeah.
Which is going to be held on June 10th at the Mercy Road Church, 2381 Point Parkway in Carmel, Indiana. And you got a poster right there in front of you. My question is, number one, what can fans, we've heard about what Wrestling Theology Fellowship brings forward. What can fans expect on June 10th?
Well, so when I book the wrestling shows, I have like how should I say this? I'm very particular. I want the wrestling shows to be good. So I think that's one of the things about our shows is that we book really good talent, and anybody that actually comes out will enjoy the show and enjoy the talent that we book and have on the show. You saw the list of all the people, and former champions was the Iron Demon, Shane Mercer of the Christian Wrestling Organization. Calvin Tankman was a champion. Drew Skills was our first champion. Anthony Toatelli, he's a great guy too. That's around here in Indianapolis and Indiana area. But anyway, so I know Apollo Star is our current world champion. Actually, we call our champion the Belt of Truth champion. And he's the current champion. We don't have the match scheduled yet right now, but if you follow Wrestling Theology, the guy, Jeremy Hadley, if you guys are familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he just went online and started calling out Apollo Star and saying that he hacked his Facebook, and he's on a campaign for a championship match on June 10th, and we'll see if that's granted to him or not. We do have a general manager that I try not to take charge of the thing. So our general manager, Tony Dynamite, who is a little bit of nefarious means, but we'll see if he's able to grant him that match or what happens there. But right now, that's the big thing. We're going to have a women's championship match. Charlie Cruel's our champion. And Chuckles the Clown will be in action. Is great. If you haven't had him, you should have him on your show. I don't know if he even does these kind of shows, but you should try to get him because he's wonderful. And we've got a pretty solid show coming together that we're putting together right now. So you'll definitely want to come out and check out the Wrestling Theology show on June 10th. I wish, and hopefully in the future, we'll be able to actually stream them. Right now, we just record them and put them up later. And I have a lot of stuff I got to get done of previous shows. But we always do a recap show. I put together like a 30 to 45, maybe an hour long, like pre-show that we show while people come and sit down. So if this is your first time coming to Wrestling Theology, you know what's been happening, why things are happening. And we also try to put those online so people can get hyped up about the shows and understand why these guys are wrestling or whatever. So, yeah, it'll be a great show, I think, though. And then in September, we're trying to put together a 2-night event, September 8th and 9th on Friday and Saturday. We've got 2 different churches that we're going to now, and they're only about 30 minutes away from each other. So one show will be at one church, and then the other show will be at the other church. And I think that'll be really cool. And if we're able to do what I want to do, we'll have some pretty cool names. In fact, I was talking, and I'm not saying that he's booked or anything, but I was talking to Kevin Sullivan at Squared Circle Expo, and I'm someone that likes to learn as much as I can, and I know that he's got a lot of experience. And we were talking about, how he could help out, how he could maybe potentially show up. I don't know if we're going to be able to work it out or not, so it's not saying that Kevin Sullivan's going to be there. But if it works out, I'd love to have him there. But we were talking to him about, what he can do to help me and getting the word out about wrestling theology and what we can do to promote and how to do this the right way and the best way. And, I'm also I'm an old school guy. I listen to a lot of Jim Cornette. I don't always agree with him, but I learn from Jim Cornette on how to book things. So, even if you don't agree with him, he's a great person to sit down and listen to and learn from.
And Rich, I got to tell you right now, again, when you talk about having the opportunity to sit and talk with Kevin Sullivan, we've actually had, I believe it was episode 200. We had Kevin Sullivan on the show and had an opportunity to speak with him at CAC. Really just a brilliant mind for the wrestling industry as well. Now, I do want to take one last question. We talked about the upcoming events. We talked about wrestling theology, and also we're going to make sure later on in the program to, as you saw earlier, we had the graphic from the website as well about being able to order tickets. And thank you for bringing that back up here. This, I believe, is on the Wrestling Theology website that you can actually pull information about tickets for Cruel Summer on June 10th. You can purchase those through the website, I do believe, as well. I do want to ask one personal question.
Okay.
And you're actually kind of focusing on it now. And I didn't even realize, I've seen it in several pictures. I've seen it there. When I was a young kid growing up, many, many years ago, I'm talking like 14, 15, 16 years old. For some reason or another, I got hooked to a company called Zuba.
Oh, yeah.
And you're wearing a bandana now. And I just managed, my wife actually more or less banned me for about 15 years, because there was a time when I think and Justin, I think it was before we ever met, this was about the only thing other than maybe a couple pair of jeans I had in my entire wardrobe.
You wore a couple times out those goddamn Zubas.
But I'm going to ask you, I was looking back at the history, how do you get a connection with everything that's here? How do you get Zuba to make a connection with WTF and Wrestling Theology? I got to ask you this, because I mean, this is one of those that just boggles my mind. I just got to get a minute here and ask you about that, because that definitely was one of those things that kind of threw me back a ways.
Yeah, so I guess they were once a sponsor, and I'd like to get them back as a sponsor. But they sent me boxes of pants, boxes of headbands. Like our first wrestling show we ever did, we gave a headband out to every kid, and everybody in the crowd had a headband, and it was great. I'd like to keep doing that. Hopefully I can get in contact with them again. The way that we got in contact with them before was before we were even booking shows. Me and a couple friends were going around, and we were wearing Zubaz to local indie shows, and we all had beards, and we called ourselves Beards and Zubaz. So one of my friends kept on hashtagging Beards and Zubaz, to the point where one of the co-founders of Zubaz started commenting on our stuff. And if you go on Zubaz, I don't know if it's still like this, but it used to be. If you go on Zubaz.com, you can see like where people's like wearing Zubaz. There's just a whole bunch of them. I don't know if it's still like that. I haven't been on the site in a long time, but half the time it was like me and my friends in those pictures that were being shared on their website. And at one point, one of my friends just messaged, "We need to talk about working together." And the dude just was like, "Hit me up." And I can't remember. He might even give us an email or something. And months went by, and I asked my friend, like, "Do you ever hit him up about anything?" And he was like, "No, I don't have anything to hit him up about." So I was like, "Well, I've got a show coming up. Why don't we hit him up about being a sponsor for Wrestling Theology?" And reached out to him, and basically his response was, "Well, how much do you need me to send?" And I come home, and there's a whole like 2 boxes full of pants and headbands. And I think when I got them, I laid them all out and took a picture of me like with them all on the ground behind me, like I was a sea of Zubaz. Still in the plastic because we gave them to people, but yeah. So I don't know, that it's an interesting, cool connection. The guy that was doing it at the time, I think he left the company, and so we kind of lost our contact with it. So I haven't really figured out the new guy and whether or not he'll just send me boxes of pants or not. Actually, I don't even care if he sends me pants. I'd like him to send headbands, though, because the headbands, they go over really well with our fans.
Oh, I bet they do. Now, Rich, I don't know in all of our conversations if I've ever mentioned this to you, but one of the things at the Wrestle Talk podcast we do each and every week is what's called the world famous Wrestle Talk podcast game show challenge.
Okay.
An opportunity for you, being the wrestling fan and person of wrestling influence that you are, would have an opportunity to participate in a best of 3 trivia contest against one of the hosts of the program. Now, to give you an idea, and I'm just going to level with you, usually I'm the one that's the host. We're going to actually let you make a choice tonight if you're willing to participate. I'm going to let you have the opportunity to choose whether you compete against Justin Wade or against the Alpha. My first question is, would you be willing to participate?
I would be willing to participate. I will say most of my knowledge comes from WWF.
Okay.
But I do have good knowledge of WCW. But since I did watch WWF, and when I was a kid, like my mom and dad, for whatever reason, one year got me a second VCR, and then I learned how to dub, and I had every Coliseum video. And then when I did that, I wrote down every single match and what time I could fast forward it to, so I could go straight to the match and watch the match I want to watch.
Wow.
So I have a lot of knowledge of wrestling, especially if it was on a pay-per-view back then, because I wrote them all down.
Well, like I said, we're going to leave this to you. You can either compete against Justin Wade or against the Alpha. I'm going to let you call who your opponent is this evening.
I'm going to go with Justin, I think.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead. We got to get you in the right frame of mind here. So if we can get our production team to hit our introduction for tonight's installment of the world famous Wrestle Talk. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's installment of the world famous Wrestle Talk podcast game show challenge. Tonight's contest is scheduled for the best 2 out of 3 falls between the founder of Wrestling Theology, Rich Abott, and the Wrestle Talk podcast's own Justin Wade. Now, gentlemen, in a few moments, what we're going to do here is I'm going to give you information about a particular wrestling category and 3 individuals who fit in said wrestling category. When you think you know the answer to the question, go ahead and shout out your answer. The first to get 2 out of 3 falls correct will win tonight's Wrestle Talk podcast game show challenge. Now, being the observant host of the Wrestle Talk podcast that I am, earlier on this evening, our guest, Mr. Abbott, mentioned WrestleMania 1.
Rob,
So,
Luke, you cut out. You, go ahead and repeat that.
WrestleMania 1.
Okay.
So tonight's Wrestle Talk podcast game show challenge category will be simply entitled WrestleMania 1.
Okay, thank you.
We'll give you information about 3 individuals who competed at WrestleMania 1. You tell me who they are. Rich, are you ready?
Sure.
Justin, are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Question number 1. This individual lost at WrestleMania 1 in a match where if he lost, his manager lost $15,000.
John said.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Justin Wade stepping up early. Big John Studd is correct.
Body Slam Challenge. That was the match.
That is true. That is true. Question number 2. Rich, are you ready?
Yeah.
Justin, are you ready?
See?
All righty. Here we go with question number 2. This individual won at WrestleMania 1, but was the only individual to win by countout. He was, as a result, unable to win the Intercontinental title from then champion
Junkyard Dog.
Junkyard Dog is correct. Rich catches it up at 1 fall apiece.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties because I didn't even get the question. So,
well,
that's okay. It's all right.
I'm going to go with Rich on this one here. Now, gentlemen, at this point, we're going to go to our third and final question, the final fall, if you will. Rich, are you ready?
Yep.
Justin, are you ready?
If the question comes through, I guess.
Fine, I see how it is. We might as well go ahead and add another rant to the rant counter here.
Oh, you better believe it.
All right, the third and final fall. This individual was successful at WrestleMania 1. For many years, this individual had the quickest victory at a WrestleMania.
King Kong Bundy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge is Wrestling Theology's own Rich Abbott. If we can go ahead and hit the victory music for him.
On music.
On the
Final Fantasy VII, man. Come on.
All right. Well, at this point, Rich, first of all, we want to say thank you for joining the Wrestle Talk podcast and being officially made and officially welcomed into the Wrestle Talk podcast family. Before we let you go, I do want to go ahead for our viewers, and we've had several who've made it a point to ask questions here through direct message, things along those lines. If they want to learn more about you or Wrestling Theology, or to potentially purchase tickets for your event on June 10th or upcoming events, how can they find out more information?
Well, we got WrestlingTheology.com. Let me just make sure we got these right. We're also on Facebook at WTF Wrestling Theology, and we're at Twitter and Instagram at Wrestling Theo. So social media, I think we're mostly on Facebook and Twitter. I didn't find Instagram was getting us a whole lot of attention, so I haven't really been posting on that as much, but those are the ways to reach out. And then you can also direct message Wrestling Theology, and that will come to me usually. So those are the places to go to find out about Wrestling Theology. And if you want to know more, I'm always welcome to talk to people. I am kind of a busy guy, especially as it leads up to a new show. We were doing every month. Now we're doing every maybe 3 to 6 shows a year. It's things kind of slowed down at COVID, and to keep it going, we just and for me in my own sanity, wanted to back off a little bit, and maybe less is more. And I think we're seeing that because we're getting more people to come out. So
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you heard here, the founder of Wrestling Theology, Rich Abott, here on the program. Rich, I got to tell you, it's been an honor and privilege to have you on the program. I feel very fortunate to have met you at this Cauliflower Alley Club this past year. And I do have, in closing, one last question for you. You talk about traveling with Scott Rummer and going to the Squared Circle Expo.
Yeah.
Many people know here in the St. Louis area on May 13th, Herb Simmons and Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling are going to be putting on a fan fest here in the St. Louis area. I don't necessarily know if Mr. Romer is going to be in attendance. I know the offer's been made. My question to you, have you given any thought about making the journey across the great state of Illinois to take part in that fan fest on May 13th?
That would be really cool. I'd love to if I could. I don't know. I haven't really given – I didn't know what was happening. I think Tony Atlas will be there, and we just had him. Funny enough, like Tony Atlas and Cowboy Bob were sitting next to each other at Squared Circle Expo, and Tony was like, me and him just won the tag titles for Herb. And so that was kind of funny. I'd definitely love to show up and be there. I just don't know, it depends if Scott's going and I have, if he wants to let me ride with him and I have the ability, I'm more than happy to go and check it out.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, we're going to have, not only are you going to have a lot of great wrestling podcasts there, you're also going to have Interstate 70 Sports Media, Roundabout Sports is going to be there. You're also going to have Renee the Night Owl Martinez and Sonny Money Mayo along, who knows, very well with myself at the event as well. A lot of great things are going to be taking place, and a lot of great things are taking place with Wrestling Theology. Rich, I want to thank you for coming on the program, and I'm going to tell you right now, we definitely want to have you back on the program in the future to talk about this upcoming event in September.
Right on, yeah. And where's Big Daddy P out of?
Big Daddy P is actually out of Tennessee. I believe he's out of I want to say Pigeon Forge or Nashville.
Oh, okay. They've got a big wrestling fest coming up. I think maybe that same weekend, or maybe not. But it's Heroes and Legends. They're doing a show around Smoky Mountains area. But
that's another great territory with professional wrestling. And again, when we talk about wrestling, you talk a lot about Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee. A lot of great wrestling has come from that area. And again, it continues with such great organizations as Wrestling Theology. Rich, thank you for coming on the program, and we look forward to having you back on in the weeks to come.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Rich Abott from Wrestling Theology here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Gentlemen, I got to ask you right now, thoughts on tonight's show? Justin?
I think he might be stuck.
Wait. Well, he might be back. Justin, your thoughts on the show?
I didn't hear a thing you said. It cut out once again. So,
oh boy.
Good. I guess I'll be here next week if the connection's right. So.
Does this count as a rant?
Might be. Alpha, your thoughts?
I thought it was a good show. I mean, it was fun. I think we had a lot to talk about. I'm a huge fan of the rant meter now, because I'm definitely going to keep track. That's right. So the stand-in is 4. We got to beat that number by next show.
That is true, Alpha. That is true. Like I said, real quick, want to thank all of our great sponsors here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Let's go ahead here and bring those up. Royal Mills Transportation, Rathbun Engraving, home of those great Wrestle Talk podcast mugs, Nobleman's Barber Lounge, Kansas City. We also have the great folks at Kincaid Arcade and the Oak Park Mall, our good friends over at Interstate 70 Sports Media. We also have Little Popeye Designs, home of those great Wrestle Talk podcast tumblers. And, of course, the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. You can catch them Thursday night, 7:30, right here on all of your great social media outlets. Gentlemen, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Ladies and gentlemen, you can check us out next Tuesday, 7 p.m. right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. You can also check us out, WrestleTalkPodcast.com. For the Alpha and Justin Wade, this is Luke Roberts. We look forward to seeing you next week right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Take care.